right, let's get started.
Let's
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Hoy and Tomorrow. I'm your host, Veronica Estrada.
I'm Maribel Serrano. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. This is going to be a really, really awesome live episode. So thank you for joining us.
Yes,
So
today we're
yeah,
going
we're
to talk
gonna go.
about, do you want to go over the agenda?
Yeah, we're gonna go over the agenda so that you guys stay on board. And if you have any friends who have been affected by this, either directly or indirectly, or anyone who's been skeptical, please share this with them. This is going to be really important information. We've both had very personal experiences with this, and so please tag them, share it. It's going to be very, very important for as many people as possible to tune in. And it is going to be available as well. But the agenda, really quick, to keep you guys on board, is we're going to talk about how our views evolve, and it's okay for our views to evolve. Losing a family member. One of us lost a family member, and Veronica will talk about that a little bit later. And yes, it was to the virus. Managing fear, what that's been like, making the best use of our time while we're in quarantine, and then what we can project and hope for, and the stimulus package. We're going to talk about that briefly. There are a lot of details in that package that just passed, and the president just signed it. It's officially a law. So we'll just briefly touch on that. But we'll start with about how our views have evolved. So I'm going to run through a quick timeline of how this sort of began to spread. December 31st last year was the first, these cases were being reported in China of this pneumonia, and it was unknown what it was. It was just known as a pneumonia. Cases were coming in. So this is just 3 months ago. January 11th, just this year, the first death was reported in China. January 20th, other countries, including the US, confirmed cases. By January 30th, the World Health Organization declared a global health emergency. So that was just 2 months ago. And by January 31st, US restricted travel to China. February 2nd was the first death outside of China in the Philippines. And February 11th, we had an official name for the virus. So not until like a month ago, a little more than a month ago, was there an actual name for this virus. And then through the month of February, we started hearing about cases in France, Korea, Japan, Iran, started spreading all over the country. So this is all very, very recent, guys. And the reason we say it's okay for our views to evolve is because this is very different for all of us. We haven't experienced something like this in our generation. And it's totally, totally natural and normal for people to be skeptical, and for people to kind of not really know what's going on, and have uncertainty around it. And I actually think it's a little healthy to be skeptical of certain things, especially because many times we've been let down with news or with social media, right? So it's almost like, how do we know what to trust anymore? So
Yeah.
for those of you guys who have been skeptical, or have had friends who've been skeptical, it's okay. Don't make yourself wrong for it. This is very new, different. It's very intense. It's a lot to process. And so you're okay. It's okay that you didn't take it as seriously from the beginning. February 23rd, Italy had a major surge in cases, and officials started to lock down towns. By February 29th, the first US death was reported. And now the United States has the most cases of any other country in the world, at more than 125,000.
You said February 29th, the first death in the US.
Yes, was reported.
So that just happened.
Yeah.
And now we are, we're still early in March, and now that quickly we're over 125,000 cases here in the US, right?
Yeah, so this is extremely, extremely fast. It's just spreading like wildfire. And for me personally, it took a long time for me to really take this seriously, because I'm a very skeptical person with anything I see in media and social media. And so it took a while, but now, we're in a state where we really need to start taking this seriously. No matter where we started, let's all get along and be friendly. And this is a time where there are the most cases in the US. This is our peak time. This is our moment to really, really be careful and practice precaution around everything. And it's difficult, because what we're essentially doing is we're telling people to give up our freedom, right? Like, stay home. It's almost like giving up our freedom. It's very scary. It's very different. So
right.
Sorry, guys. Veronica, what's been your experience with your views and how they've evolved?
Um, I've had a really personal experience with COVID-19. I was actually in New York City a few weeks ago. You probably saw in my stories, and I was in very, very, very close proximity. I was actually staying with family members who were then tested positive for COVID-19. And honestly, like the fear that I had when I thought, oh my God, I could be infected. Me and my dad stayed at the apartment in Queens with my family, and we came back and we felt like we had been hit by a truck. So at first I was like, oh, this is just the flu. No pasa nada. I don't have it. Like I was in denial. And
Did
I
you have a
didn't.
cough?
Not really. Not really. I had more like a fever, body aches. So it literally for me, honestly, my experience has been that it felt like a flu. And then what happened is that my aunt and my grandma had to go to the hospital like 2 days after we got back from Queens. And then I was like, oh my God, it's very real. Even though for me, my symptoms, I could handle it. I just stayed in bed. I hydrated. I drank medicine. But once my aunt and my grandma had to go to the hospital, then I was like, oh my God, I understand now why they're saying everyone should stay home. And I think that it became that much more real for me once my family had to be taken in an ambulance, to the hospital. And then from there, I started to take it a lot more seriously and taking like the self quarantine very, very seriously.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of times it takes for that to kind of for it to hit close to home because when you told me about your situation, you're a trusted source for me, whereas I don't know when TV and the internet is a trusted source, but once it happened to you, then I knew that's when it really hit me, because
Yeah.
now it was hitting close to home.
Yeah.
Do you
Right.
share? Well, yeah, so share with us what happened, Veronica, with your family, and how
So,
are they now?
yeah. So unfortunately, my grandmother passed away from COVID-19 on Wednesday. So that hit our family really, really hard. And my aunt that was with her, that lived with her, she's at home recovering. So she's recovering. Me and my dad are totally recovering as well. Um, we don't have any more symptoms. We don't feel sick anymore. I have another uncle who's in the hospital recovering, and his wife is also recovering. So, as the numbers in my family align with what we've heard, where most people recover from this, but not everyone does. And, you know, my grandmother's a unfortunate example of that. And she took very good care of herself. She was super healthy. She was drinking like green smoothies. She was working out. She was super healthy before the virus came and in 16 days ended up taking her life.
Yeah, so she didn't have any other underlying
No,
illness or anything, and
no,
that's
she was totally healthy. There's actually, my cousin got married February 1st, and my grandma was there. She was dancing all night. She traveled from New York to El Salvador. Like, she was great, in great health. And, my heart breaks, especially for my dad and my aunts and uncles and my cousins, because they all saw how healthy she was and they thought they were going to have her along more time. They really were like, my dad keeps saying that. He's like, I'm going to have her at least another 10 years. And
yeah,
we just saw her and now she's gone.
yeah, yeah. And Veronica, for you specifically, you've had a very, very rough past couple of years because you've dealt with a lot of loss. And one thing we're talking about is managing fear because a lot of people are afraid that that situation is going to happen in their family too, which it
Yeah.
can. The mayor of Los Angeles came out saying that we're going to see a lot of deaths and around the world, right? And so there's a lot of fear going on right now. And you and I were talking earlier, and I was telling Veronica, again, different experiences, but I was telling Veronica that this this concept of fear, right, and the fear of the unknown and the uncertainty, and how it shows up differently for people. On a personal level, I'm very familiar with fear. It's almost become my friend, and uncertainty as well. When you're someone who grows up with the fear of losing your home and, being undocumented and what playing in our head what that's going to look like, and And some people will say, yeah, but you know, people can die. And it's like, yeah, but people can die from being deported too. And so when I thought about that in my mind, my mind would go there. Like if I ever, like what, you know, with the kidnappings and with all these scary stories that we hear, like I lived with uncertainty most of my life and with fear. So I almost got used to just living with that and knowing and being very familiar with what that feels like. So it's not a new feeling for me or a new place to be in.
Yeah.
You had a very difficult last couple years with loss, and so would you share with our viewers what the loss has been like, how you've been managing that fear around that?
Yeah. And you know, I think it's important for us to recognize how our experiences have basically been training for this. I talk about how do we choose our suffering? How do we become more resilient? And it's not just me talking about this. You know, we also hear Brene Brown talking about how to be more resilient. And it's something that fortunately I've experienced a lot of loss. You know, since my maternal grandmother passing in 2016, the way that I handled that, I was just numbing a lot, and I was just drinking a lot. I was drinking a lot of tequila and like barely hanging on. And I was very, very distraught. And then from there, I've shared on the show that my best friend Izzy passed away February last year. And then her dog passed away, and then my 8-year relationship sort of passed away, and I moved to a new city, and the way of life that I knew has completely shifted.
Mm-hmm.
Even like the death of my dream job, my dream career, that's a death also, that's a loss. And so I've had the opportunity to see things a different way and really like train myself to find the good in every situation and find the good in the gift in the suffering. Like the last episode, I just talked about this, and in that episode, my grandma was still alive. Like, and here I am, you know, a week and a half later, and she's no longer here. So again, I have to take my own advice, you know, and really look for that gift and
Yeah.
continue to be resilient in the face of these challenges and uncertainty. And it's like similar to what you've experienced, where you were living in fear. You know, you were undocumented, you didn't know what tomorrow held if stuff changed, and it led you to live your life in such a way that you made a lot of decisions coming from that space that served you. And now it's like you're ready for these types of events, you know, and this is what
Yeah,
it's
for
all
me,
about.
yeah, managing fear for me was always like there were two parts of it. There's what I can control and what I cannot control. And then just becoming very clear of what I can't control what's happening, you know, in the world. Like I'm not, if I was a medical expert, you know, I'd be running around trying to find a cure for this, but we're not. So we can't control that. That's out of our control. But we can control what we're doing with our lives and how we're protecting ourselves and other people. So the way I manage fear is getting clear about like the facts versus the emotion. Um, and then doing research. I do a lot of research when I'm in fear because I want to get the facts instead of just letting my emotions take over and talk about how devastated I am. It's like I get very solution oriented.
Yeah.
And that's how I manage fear.
Yeah, I hear you. And I think, you know, how I manage fear, there's a few different things that I do. Um, I've been meditating, thankfully, for 5 or so years. And so having awareness that my thoughts are not who I am has been incredibly helpful. And having that awareness, I think now is everybody's chance to level up their awareness of themselves, right? And like
Yeah.
really see like what kinds of thoughts keep looping. Is it really
Yeah.
terrifying, scary thoughts? Or in my case, I find myself being just so positive that I can't help it. Like now my habit is to be positive. When before my habit was to be very angry and like blaming people and woe
Yes.
is me. I was such a victim before. And now thankfully, because of meditation and being aware that I'm not my thoughts, and then practicing filling those negative thoughts in with positive ones, oh my God, it changed my life, you know? So awareness
Yeah.
that the thoughts are going to come, and they are not who I am is one thing. And then the other thing I do is journal a lot and sort of just free write, like, what am I afraid of right now? And then the third thing I've been doing to manage fear is like just having solo dance parties by myself to like shake the energy out, that fear, shake it out, you know, and praying a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, Veronica. And then you and I were talking earlier, and I told you how amazing it is that, you know, you just lost a family member to this virus. Yeah, you have so much light and positivity, and it shows that you've really been doing the work. Like it really shows that you've dealt with this, you've like learned to accept, right? And it doesn't mean that you don't care. It just means that you're accepting, and you realize that, you know, life is like, it's beautiful, it's a gift, and there's a gift in every situation. And even after experiencing so much loss, you can come out of that in such like a positive way. And I love that. Like I just really want to recognize that in you.
Thanks.
And so with that, making the best use of our time, that's a great opening to talk about that. And it's you know, we're being very, very confronted with ourselves and with like
this is personal development, people. This is what it's about. Like now if you were into personal development before, this is it. You're in it now, buddy.
We, like, a lot of us like don't realize that we use certain things as an escape, right? Like going out, or a lot of us think
or
that
Netflix.
Yeah, or Netflix. And so this is just like, oh my gosh, I'm discovering so much about myself, and like also the meditating, and it's so confronting how I think sometimes, or like how when I have nothing to do, how do I feel about myself? And so it's been a very, very confronting situation to be in, is this isolation, just be in a room with ourselves, by ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, what's up, you know? Like, what have you discovered?
So many things that I did not want to know. And, you know, you guys, this is coming from a place of like, we're in personal development. This is my career, to be a life coach and support people, you know, in their growth. But man, I'm figuring out like how dependent I am on having a romantic relationship, just discovering what my coping mechanisms are even more, and mitigating those as much as I can. I'm also just learning to love my all natural nails and my hair growing out, and like I'm getting back into my self-care and self-love routines, because like I can't go anywhere. This is me. You know?
Like, this is me. We have to deal with it. We have to confront it. Like, I have a nail that broke, and I'm like trying to protect it. And I'm like, it is what it is. I just got to deal with it. It's just me and myself now. But, you know, another thing I discovered is like how much I wasn't really familiar with my body, and how much I judge my body. So one thing I've been doing with my time is like really, really like being with it. Like, you know, I've judged my body before, like, oh, I'm overweight, or I want to lose 10 pounds or however many. And it's very theoretical, but really sitting with myself and with my body and being with it and feeling like every part of it, right? And like just loving, like having a relationship with my body.
Right.
Never done before, ever. It's always just been theoretical. It's always just been like, oh, look at my belly, I need to lose that. Or, oh, you know, just been never really taking the time to be with it.
Yeah.
And so it's a whole new experience, and it's really beautiful. And like how much I love just connecting with people. I'm discovering that so much, because I want to be on the phone, I want to talk to my parents, to my friends, and I'm discovering I love human connection so much.
Yeah, right. Totally. No, me too. And I'm loving that we're all being confronted with this right now, especially the women, and and the guys too. They can't go to their barbers. They can't go get like their fade done. Like, we're all here looking at ourselves in the mirror, and this is more about cultivating that inner beauty versus external beauty, because now nobody's seeing us except for just us, and it's about loving ourselves just as we are, imperfections and everything, and cultivating that inner beauty, because we want that inner dialogue to be kind. And as you said, you know, when you're doing self-care practices and we're building that self-love, and you can start building a relationship with your body and appreciating how healthy we are, appreciating that we have all our limbs, appreciating that we can walk and we can breathe deeply. Like all that stuff becomes that much more important. You know, it's
Yeah.
critical, and we never get the chance to do that. And now it's like, now we have all the time in the world, mofos. Like, what are we gonna do now?
No
You know?
excuses, right? And really being confronted, because a lot of us think, oh, if I only had the time to do this, I totally would. I'm only not doing it because I don't have time.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
putting my because I don't have time. I'm not meditating because I don't have time. I'm not, and now we have all this time, and some of us are still not doing it. So is it
right.
really about not having time, or is
Yeah,
it, that confrontation of what is it that's really holding us?
yeah,
Yeah. And some people are saying, Netflix. I've been watching so much Netflix, and we were talking about earlier that some people online are like, I'm so frustrated at this, how much Netflix can someone watch? Like, I'm tired.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
said that someone said, oh, I finished Netflix.
Yeah, like I finished
all of
Netflix,
it.
like I'm done. Yeah.
But how
So
many times do we think, oh, I just wish I had all this time and I could just watch Netflix and relax,
yeah,
and then we have that opportunity and it's still not enough.
yeah,
Like, it's not really what we want, right?
yeah.
So we're really being confronted with, like, what do
Our
we
habits. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think the great discovery what we are all are getting inadvertently is what kinds of habits do I practice? Like, what are my habits? The good, the bad, the ugly. Especially focus on the freaking ugly ones and focus on the good ones, because as we try to change our habits and change who we are, we need to first of all recognize that we identify with some of these habits, even the ones that don't serve us, like eating a lot of comfort food. Like I had a whole roll of brie that I ate by myself, and that's not a healthy habit, but I wasn't mean to myself about it, and then the good stuff that I do for myself, like working out and the ability to work out at home, recognizing that too, and replacing the brie with the workout, replacing the unhealthy stuff that doesn't serve me as much with, like, what am I good at? What am I doing that is actually really good for me? And that's like meditating and working out, praying, dancing, and connecting with friends, So whenever I feel like an urge to go have more cheese and, charcuterie, like, I'm like, no, focus on the good stuff, So that's like, we need to fill in those habits, the negative ones, and replace them with more good, very gently, but where you're super aware of it,
I told one of my coaches, I said that one thing that came to mind is if we were told that our quarantine was going to end in a week, would we be proud of how we handled this time? Right? Like, would we be proud of, like, the habits and what we did while we had time alone? Like, if it was our last week in this situation, what will we do with our time? And so when I realized that, I started, like, stretching a lot, and I am actually going out for walks more now than I did before. In a park where, like, not a lot of people are there, so social distancing, but getting some sun and doing a lot of stretching. I can actually touch my toes now. It was really hard every day, but these are habits. It's like such an opportunity to cultivate habits that we can bring with us even after this is over.
100%.
Yeah.
And this is literally what I'm talking about. When I say, let us live in such a way that any day is a good day to die. What does that mean? That means that we are fully aware that our time here is borrowed, digamos, like tomorrow's not promised. And so that means that we know who we are. We know what we're passionate about. We know what impact we want to make in the world, and we know how we want to show up in the world. And we are bringing that every day. Every day we show up with a positive attitude. You're resilient, you're loving, you're giving. Be who you're going to be, right? Like, it's the last week of quarantine. What if it's the last week of our life? Are you proud of how you showed up in this time?
Exactly. Yes. And then, so let's move on to what can we project and hope for. So I've been, again, doing a lot of research. I've been just diligently looking at stats and data. Somebody said, how to build a schedule.
All right, you guys, type in your questions in the Q&A section.
Yeah, we're going to do Q&A after. So what can we project and hope for? Well, we can project that there are going to be a lot more deaths. We don't know how long this is going to last, but the stimulus package that just passed is supposed to hold us up until July, the beginning of July. And so we were talking earlier and we said that even is this going to end up in just being equilibrium? A lot of experts are saying that the virus is going to stay and it's just going to reach its equilibrium and then it's going to be like the flu. I mean, the symptoms are different. People die from this, at higher rates, but is it something that we're just going to have to live with, And, I do think that the cases will go down eventually. And I think it will take a couple months based on the research that I've been doing and projecting also too that it's going to take a time after that even to get back to what was our normal life. And like you said, it's going to take time because people are going to need to really think about our safety. Is it really safe now to put together this huge event like Coachella, or this
not Coachella,
or to wait a few more months? And I really don't think that this is going to settle until like the end of the year. I do think that we will have eventually like less new cases and hopefully that's in a couple months.
Right.
But it's something that is going to take a long time for us to kind of jump back from as far as like our economy, our well-being.
Right. Yeah. And going into a new normal, and I don't think we're ever going to go back to the way things were. We're never going to go back to that sort of like, I don't know, it's almost like we were asleep and we had no idea how interconnected we really are. And some of us knew, but now the whole world knows, like, this is a global pandemic. This is changing everyone's lives. And after this, we're not going to be the same. And I don't want to be the same after this. I'm happy that this is bringing awareness to the interconnectedness of everyone and how connected we are to the planet and everything else. And not only connected to the planet, but then connecting with ourselves, with our inner selves. You know what I mean? Like, I think things are going to be different. They're going to be awesome. I think that a lot of industries are shifting because of this. So that's what I'm hopeful about. I'm hopeful that I know that the human spirit thrives when it's challenged. And as a collective, we're going to come back from this so much stronger, so much innovation, so many things are going to change for the better, and things that weren't working for us, they're going to die off, and I think that's also what COVID is teaching us, that, death is inevitable. We knew that, but now we know it even more. And we can also kill off our bad habits. Like, we can evolve just like everything else is evolving. Like, personally, you can evolve from being angry, from being scared, from being negative to being positive and strong and resilient and in the face of adversity. That's what this is teaching us.
Yeah, your positivity has given me so much life, especially considering what you've been through, Veronica. But I agree. I think that we're going to come back stronger and it's going to be beautiful, and like human connection is going to be stronger. I do think that there are going to be changes to, like, maybe with immigration laws. I think there's going to be more of a surge towards technology and innovation, and companies are going to want to prepare in case something like this happens again. So I think that we're really, looking into this new, almost like a new beginning and like a new world. But I think it's going to be great. I think it's beautiful what we're learning right now as far as what really matters.
Yeah.
And who have we been in the world, right? In the past. And who do we want to be now that we're faced and confronted with death and with fear and with, like, oh my gosh, like, if this was the end, would I have been happy with what I was doing with my life? Would I be satisfied and fulfilled? Did I live a life that I can be proud of?
Right.
And
what's your legacy?
And the beautiful thing is that we have this opportunity that we are going to be able to go out into the world again. It's not the end.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And it's, I mean, not to bring it back, but I'm gonna bring it back. Kobe just died in a tragic way. And we had the opportunity again globally to mourn his death and everyone else who passed away, but really look at the type of life that he lived and how he showed up. And it made us all think, and we all were feeling it, right? but now fear comes back in through this pandemic, and we can't forget that we are building our legacy every single day. And our legacy doesn't have to be like, I'm super rich and famous and look at all the money I have. It's really about like, who are the people that you touch on a day-to-day basis in your life, your loved ones, your coworkers, the person who opens the door for you at your building, or like the person cleaning the building. Like, how are you going to be remembered, you know, on a micro level and a macro level again? And just brush, like, sharpening the sword of your character. Like, really care about how you're showing up, and don't settle for less. Like, you are capable of so much more. We're all capable of so much more.
Yes, and this is really, really a time. Like, I understand there's a lot of emotion going around. There's
Yeah.
people are losing loved ones, including Veronica. It's intense. It is, you know, and but let's just forgive ourselves and be loving and take this time to appreciate it. I mean, in the United States, we have so much abundance. Like, we don't have to worry about where are we going to get water or food from. You know, the
Right.
supply chain is healthy. Let's just, you know, so we're in a very, very good spot. We are going to survive this. It is hard. Let's just, you know, sacrifice a few months of just not being around and escaping into being around groups and big parties. And, you know, just what I'm just so, especially after having this conversation, enlightened
Yeah.
and empowered. And, you know, this can be such a great, great thing for the world overall, and for us to really love and really our families, our friends, and, you know, so we also said we were going to talk about the stimulus package. We'll touch on that a little bit because there's so many details, but it's a 2.2 trillion dollar package that the president signed, and it's going to help small business, large companies, individuals, employees. And what I love is that it's also going to help independent contractors and the self-employed, which has not happened in the past. There's a temporary program that's going to essentially give unemployment to independent contractors. And it doesn't mean that unemployment in general is changing. This is just a temporary program for an emergency fund to help people. So if someone's like an Uber driver or a real estate agent who works as an independent contractor,
Right.
anything that is just on an independent basis, then that relief is going to come for them as well. And I have a lot of friends that are in that industry, and a lot of them who've been struggling and who would not have otherwise qualified for unemployment. So it's amazing that that emergency part is there.
Yeah.
And then small businesses are also going to be able to apply for loans, which a portion of it are forgivable loans. So it's essentially a grant if certain funds go to paying for rent or for payroll, for essentials like that, then it's pretty much granted. So there's a lot more that goes into that if somebody has like a larger company. So, and there's so many resources, guys. Do a lot of research, because you can hear different things from people, especially with a stimulus package this big, but never just rely on one source. There's so many ways that you can be helped and that you can receive assistance. And so it's official, it's become a law. And some places are still trying to figure out how to set the system in place. For instance, California, their system isn't up to date yet. So a lot of people are wondering, well, how do I apply for this? Or how, you know, how am I going to proceed? So just wait a little bit. It takes time. Once a bill is passed, the systems have to be put in place to be able to accommodate all of that. So be a little patient and do research while you can, until we can catch up.
Exactly. I think the key thing about what you're saying and about the stimulus package is that we have to ask for help and get really comfortable asking for help. And whether it's asking Google, asking a friend, or even now I see some people are asking questions about where can they get tested, or how can I be more financially savvy during these times. That's exactly what you need to be doing, guys. Like asking these questions and taking it upon yourself to research, to ask your contacts for anyone that they know who could give you advice on that. And if you don't have anybody in your network, definitely feel free to send us a DM and ask us for help, because between Maribel and I, we have a very deep network of people who are professionals in all different facets. So, you know, DM us. We don't have all the answers, but we would love to connect you with someone who can help and who can support you. And that's what it's all about. You know, we get to learn to ask for help and know that we can't do it by ourselves. Like, No one's in it alone.
Yeah.
And this is another reminder that we're all in it together.
Yeah. Somebody, I'm looking at the comments that you guys are posting. Thank you all for tuning in. We love you guys so much. Okay, somebody said how to build a schedule while working at home. Veronica, you're like the queen of organization. You want to take that one?
I would say, first of all, I acknowledge you for doing the hard thing of working, from home. I say, put it on your calendar. Put things on your calendar and structure your day on purpose. Think about the things that you really want to get done and call it like 3 things on business that you know are your top priorities. Get the hard things done first because we have more willpower earlier in the day than later in the day. So schedule your days, literally put it on your calendar and set alerts. That's my main thing. Like, put it on your calendar and then see what happened. At the end of the day, look at it again and be like, oh, I got X, Y, and Z done, or man, I only got X done. I really thought I was going to do more. And be gentle with yourself. Observe what happens. Do research on yourself and on your productivity habits, and be like, okay.
Yeah, it's easier now because when we were able to go out and events were happening and we were being social, our schedule was somewhat unpredictable, right? But now it's so predictable because we're going to be home.
Yeah.
So it's
there's no traffic to blame.
There's no traffic to blame. There's no like, oh my God, this event came up, or this meeting that I had to go to this coffee shop. So it's a lot more predictable. So it's easier to really sit down and plan out your day because you know that you're going to be home. So it'll be easier. Yeah. And then someone said, how can we capitalize, or how can we, something about finances. So, I've taken this as an opportunity to look into stocks as well, just to become more educated, because I've always wanted to learn more about stocks and finance. And so looking at the patterns of what's happening with the market and what are the opportunities right now. Mm-hmm. And so anything you have to say about that, Beto, with your finance background?
Yeah, I would say, honestly, don't look at your 401k accounts right now. That money is long-term money. Do not look at it. Don't go in there and try to make changes now. Don't let fear put you in a worse situation. Honestly, I haven't looked at my 401k accounts. I know some of my friends have, and they're losing a lot, but that money's going to come back. Just like in 2008, 2009, then we had a 10-year bull market. Like, yo, if you took your money out and you didn't put it back in because you were scared, you missed out. And so I didn't touch the money in 2008. I'm not touching it now. I'm not a financial advisor anymore, you guys. So, take it with a grain of salt. But I would say get curious about your financial standing, and look for resources. Like, there's a book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich, which is awesome. It gives you tips across the board on how to manage your money. There's Money, A Love Story by Kate Northrup. That's another great story that helps us figure out how do we react with money. I think we want to learn about our emotional habits around money versus let me invest in this or let me invest in that. I think really understand who you are and understand what matters to you and what's causing you fear. And doing research on yourself and that relationship with money is what I would really focus on during these times. And also your banker friends, reach out to them.
Yeah, I would say get curious about the financial patterns in the world and in the country, because these are patterns that we see every 9 to 12 years. There's some sort of recession. And so right now we're really at a low. So really getting curious about what are those patterns? Where are we now? And then how can we be financially savvy and then use these patterns to kind of be able to not predict, but when we're starting to see, oh my gosh, it looks like this is going to happen. Let me be safe. Let me, allocate my funds or my assets. And so I think it's a great time to also really get familiar and embrace our finances and the global and patterns of what that looks like.
And scheduling time to look at our finances. Schedule a limited amount of time if you're uncomfortable with them. Schedule 10, 10, 15, 20 minute increments and like sit with it, make it a nice experience for yourself, or you're lighting a candle, playing music you like, and go into it and know that it's going to end. That way
Yeah.
you don't just overwhelm yourself and you're like, let me look at everything and I suck and look at how bad I spent my money. Like, this is
Yeah.
not the time.
Oh, and speaking about money, also a lot of companies right now are being very flexible. If it's a credit card company, if it's a mortgage, if it's taxes you owe, whatever it is, make the call, send the email, because there's a lot of flexibility, not to have it canceled or forgiven, but to postpone it so that you can have
Yeah.
some time to catch up. So
Yeah.
definitely, like, don't feel stressed if you're in a tight financial situation. Know that there's a lot of support right now and a lot of flexibility, even with your landlord. So take advantage of
Yeah.
that. One
Ask for
said,
help. Ask for help. Again, the theme comes up. Ask for help, you guys, and it'll come. I have a question too that my friend
and
Viv submitted. Um,
go for
she said, how can we support friends who have been impacted by COVID-19? One of my friends' dads has it and she feels helpless, like she can't do anything about it. So how can you support your friends who are being impacted by COVID-19? What do you want to take a stab at it, or should I?
how can you support your friends who have been affected by COVID-19 through a direct family member? Is that
Yeah.
uh so it's kind of what we were talking about earlier, is having that loss and that fear. It's a lot to deal with. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of fear, but it's like a lot of times we jump into emotions because we think that if we're really, really scared, or if we're really, really sad, you know, it is just like it's gonna somehow change the situation, right? Or somehow it's gonna make things better, but it's not. And we're all, you're all lovely people, and everyone who's going through this, like, you're wonderful and you're lovely, but it serves more to come from a place of love and support and empowerment. It's gonna support your family more, yourself, your circle, to bring that light and that
Right.
love
Right.
versus that devastation. And it's normal to be devastated and sad, totally,
And
because
to feel helpless.
we're
That's
human. Yeah, to feel
totally
helpless,
normal.
and it's okay. It's okay, but it's also okay to bring love and light and hope and empowerment into this space. And Veronica, if you weren't here earlier to see the what we talked about earlier, Veronica actually lost a family member directly. So what's been your experience, Veronica? What would you say about supporting someone
Yeah, I
who's
would say
going through that?
one thing that I have found to not be helpful is don't ask them where they got it from. That question does not help. So don't ask people like where or how did it happen. Honestly, that question does not help. So don't ask that. That's my first tip. My second tip is, considering that I did lose my grandmother to COVID-19, the support that I've appreciated is people reaching out either, on DMs or Instagram, or texting me, calling me to talk through it. And sometimes people are just there for me, and sometimes they just hear me cry, and that's okay. And like feeling helpless is okay. But I think, as you said, showing up in with love, that's the most important thing. You know what I mean? Oh, and a Harvard Business Review just did a really good article on grief. It helped us a lot. My sister is commenting here. We're going to share that also. We're going to add that to our link in our bio, because it's really helpful, this grief that we're all feeling, and feeling helpless and feeling like you can't do anything. That's actually totally normal, and accepting that. Accept it and then move forward. And a quote that I've had up on my wall recently is, what would love do? What would love do? And show up like that to your friends who've lost someone, to your friends who are suffering, who have COVID. Show up with love. What would love do? And show up like that. And sometimes you don't have to say a lot. You just have to be there.
Yes, and again, I keep going back to this because I'm just so fascinated and amazed at how Veronica's energy is so loving and so like filled with so much light, and she directly has been affected by losing a family member, and she cares deeply, and she can still come in as this like beautiful, positive, enlightening person. And so that's, you all can be like that during this time. You
Yeah.
know, whether it's affecting you at that level or not, it's affecting all of us, but we all can come from a very, very, you know, empowered space.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's so much, and like Veronica said, it's grief what we're experiencing, and it's new and it's different. So it's okay, forgive yourself if you haven't taken it as seriously from the beginning. It's okay. It's
Yeah.
new for everyone, and
Forgive
there's been a lot
yourself.
of
Yeah.
uncertainty.
If you ask somebody how they got it, forgive yourself. You
Yeah.
didn't know any better, but you know, we have to be, no, we don't have to be, we get to be patient with ourselves and forgiving with ourselves. And we get to ask for help. We get to be vulnerable. And it's all the personal development work that Hoy and Tomorrow is all about, you guys. Like, this is why we created this show. So, you know, another way to use your time is go catch up on Hoy and Tomorrow episodes and see what personal development parts you want to grow in, and like where do you
Yes.
want to
I
get
love
better.
Yes, you guys, if you're not familiar with our show or with our episodes, search Oi and Tomorrow on YouTube. You'll be able to see what we've talked about for the past like 10 months or so.
Yeah.
We've been
Yeah.
out one episode a week. And so we love to have you all subscribe. And if you are tired of Netflix, go on to
Yes.
YouTube
Good call.
Tomorrow. Please subscribe to our channel and also like this Instagram page if you haven't yet. The recording is going to be available after we're done here in just a couple minutes. So please share it with somebody that is being affected by this, or someone who can really use this information. Tag them, share it with them. Thank you all so much for logging on and being part of our conversation. We love you. I think we can all agree on taking care of ourselves, especially now that the US has the most cases in any other country.
Yeah.
Love you guys so much.
Yeah. We love you guys. Again, go subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet. Go catch up on the episodes. Send us some DMs.
Yes.
And we're so honored that you joined us today. Thank you so much. And we're going to make this available later. And, you know, hopefully we'll have another live episode and share some more tips of how to become absolutely radiant and positive and resilient.
Yes, and our tagline is healing into our epic greatness. So it's such a space for healing.
Yeah.
Right now, and also starts to subside, we're going to be healing. So
yeah,
we love you guys. Thank you so much.
Yes. Ciao. Bye.
Ciao.